If there's something strange in the bodybuilding neighborhood, who you gonna listen to? Steve and Mike. And if there's something strange and it don't look good, who you gonna turn to? Steve and Mike. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It's the improvement season. I ain't afraid of no Liver King. Da-da. How was that jingle?
Oh dear, Ghostbusters, man, that's a throwback. Uh
Yeah.
I literally cannot remember the last. Didn't they release a movie fairly recently, like the updated Ghostbusters movie? I haven't
I
seen
think
it.
so. No, me neither. I think that does ring a bell though, for sure.
If I had both hands free right now, I would clap. I have one of them itching, scratching. Sorry. Do you ever get that mixed up? Itchy and scratching. It's something I always get thrown by. I'm like, it's scratching. You're scratching an itch. You don't itch a scratch. Anyway, I'm scratching her. So, like, I slap my head, clap. There you go.
Yeah,
That's actually good,
yay.
Mike. That was great. Well prepared. I like it. Yeah. What can I say? When was the last? That's the thought I had in my head, Mike. Random one. When was the last time you went to the cinema and saw a film?
Oh, do you know what? I think
What
it
was
was
the film?
Avengers Endgame.
Oh, damn, that was a long time ago then.
I know. But I get tempted, but then I never follow through. And I don't know if you remember this, but when we were younger, kind of more late 90s, early 2000s, it seemed to take forever for films to go from cinema to like DVD or whatever. But now it's like it's almost immediately on Netflix or something.
Yeah, I think Disney. I don't know how long their time is, but it's very quick. Like the if it's through Disney, it will be very readily available on Disney Plus. Not that I have that anymore, but I did have access to it previously. But they changed some of their terms, so I don't have access to it anymore, which is kind of upsetting. I might need to change something about that. Actually, funny enough, Charlotte was saying Netflix did this too. You used to be able to have like one Netflix account and then share it with friends.
Mm.
Like you could have multiple people on one account. But they changed it, so I don't know. They did something, but it looks like they're changing it back. People
Oh,
who are listening might have seen that, but yeah, seems like maybe they burnt too many people and they're losing some money, so obviously they made a change there. But yeah, Ghostbusters, I definitely haven't seen. I can't even remember the last time I watched Ghostbusters, or if I've even seen it all the way through. It was never like a favorite of mine, but I do know it, and that
yeah.
tune is probably more well known than the actual like thing in for itself.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. I wasn't like a hardcore fan, but it just brings back fond memories, like the theme song and all of those things. It's so good, and I'm almost tempted to go back to the old films in like the 80s or something and see what it's like because it's just
That doesn't
quite
surprise
funny.
me.
Of course,
Yeah,
80s Mike stuck in.
yeah, I can't think of any recent films that I'm like, oh, I really enjoyed seeing that. I literally can't think of one in recent times that I've been like, oh, that was amazing. Yeah, and I haven't been to the cinema. I can't remember the last thing I saw at the cinema even. And I think I probably was disappointed. So, yeah, it's a shame, really, because I used to really enjoy going to the cinema.
Yeah, it's kind of the atmosphere for me at least. It's not so much, at least now anymore, it's not the quality, but it's just you've got like, the surround sound and just the atmosphere, and it's just quite cool.
Yeah, it was like the experience. Like the thing, I think, funnily enough, the fondest memories were like, oh, going. Well, one was when I was younger. We try and see like whatever age inappropriate for us, but we try and sneak into like the older age films, and that was always fun slash like terrifying at the same time. And then like the pick a mix and doing all of that
Mm,
and being with
so
friends, all of that. But yeah, some of the there's loads of like bougie cinemas now. We have some in London where they're like underneath the railway and they're like small screens, which
mm,
seems cool and it's quite nice and like it's nice surround sound. But I kind of liked just the epicness of like a huge screen with like, I don't know, you could fit 100 people in there watching one thing.
yeah.
That's kind of what it was about. But anyway, I've taken us on a wild tangent there. We're both wearing Rascal, right? You've got
Wait,
the
yes, the Batwing Grey.
Yes, nice. Yeah, these are good for this weather. I don't know how you feel about it though. I like wearing these on leg days. The only downside is I think you managed to, but I can't wear my belt over the top of it because it's too cropped. My torso is
Uh,
too long.
my torso is not quite as long as yours, so I just about managed to get away with it.
Yeah, so for me, these are like extra cropped because I have my proportions are like I don't know how much of my body is just like stomach, but I don't have like, some people have like huge chests and then their abs and their like stomach region is just tiny. Mine's like a, don't know, sort of almost half my body length is just like my abdominals, which aren't anything impressive either, which is a real shame. So anyway, these are, I have to wear, if I do it on leg days, I have to wear the belt on my skin, which is just not, for whatever reason, it just threw me when I had to do that, and I didn't like it in the same way as when it's on the material. But anyway, yeah, the actual, I think this one's called like a mesh light wing. I think yours might be a light wing. I don't know. It might be a bat wing. I can't tell.
I think it's a bat wing.
The shape's
It's
very
like,
similar.
yeah.
Has it got
It took me
the
a
little speckled, like different color specks? Okay, that's a
No.
light wing then. You've got the extra
Oh, okay.
lightweight one, whereas the bat wing is a bit thicker, and the grey one, which I have, has like some little specks. I forget what it's called, but I didn't expect it. I thought it was just grey, and then it came and it has like multicolored little specks in, which is pretty cool. For the listeners who are listening and not watching, you can't see what we're wearing. You're just going to have to go to Rascal and search Batwing or Lightwing. And I do have a slight incentive saying this because you can use the code STRONGER and save yourself some money as well. And this mesh is a new one. I was saying it kind of looks like a football, like American football jersey type of fit. Charlotte laughs at me when I wear these with some of the other clothing that's quite brightly colored, and she's like, I wouldn't be surprised if people think you're maybe gay.
Yeah.
It's a very camp look, and I'm like, I know I know it is. It's quite different, isn't it? I definitely get a few looks, and I just don't care. Like I quite like that it's unique, like clearly tattooed up, and they're all brightly colored and what have you. So the bald head, I think, does it in particular. Something about the bald head makes me look more camp. I don't know why. You think it make you look more like a brute, but it just makes me look more gay. Don't mind.
I did think though, because you posted in the Hypertrophic Time Chamber the shorts, the leopard skin shorts, and I was like,
they are so good.
Are they good?
Yeah, they are. I have them down here, but the fit is the classic shorts that Rascal do are, I think they're 3 inches maybe. They're a bit short sometimes. These are like 5 inches, so they're just a bit of a better length for me, a bit more of an all-rounder. You could wear them. They wouldn't look so inappropriate worn as like a casual pair around the streets. People wouldn't be looking at you like, that's a lot of leg. They'd be like, yeah, that's a good size short. That shows a good amount of leg. I don't know really how to say it, but the material is stretchy, like very stretchy and very lightweight. So yeah, and the pockets are like invisible zip type pockets, which I think I just love.
Great.
I like zip pockets because it's extra secure, but then when you zip them up, they're not like clunky and in the way. So they're my favorite shorts. And I was actually, the leopard print ones I was surprised by because I didn't actually order those. They got added to my order. And I was like, oh, interesting. They got added to my order. And then I was like, oh, wow, I actually prefer these to the other ones I got, which are like zebra print, but like blue. So anyway, I'm rambling. But
No.
yeah, honestly, the shorts, they're my favorite shorts.
Has anyone said anything to you in the gym?
No.
Really?
Not many people speak to me in the gym, I have Tim, who's a client from the gym, and we're chit chat, but he doesn't really comment so much on like what I'm wearing. And then other people, no one really. I wouldn't really mind if someone commented. I don't think I've had any comments, but I definitely get some looks. Like this morning, I was walking Ada, had my like baby blue one of these on, and the like zebra print shorts on, and I was walking her around, and like some people were like, and I had my what they called these over-ear headphones, like I had them like on my head here, like Princess Leia style. So I looked a bit different, a bit quirky, but you know what? Who cares?
Who cares? Well, because it's interesting. People have come up to me in the gym and asked me about my clothes.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So
What'd
they're
they
like,
ask?
I love your bottoms. They just say
the
like,
bottoms,
I love your bottoms.
the bright colours.
It was really funny actually because a guy came up to me in the gym and he recorded himself doing some deadlifts, and he said he showed his partner him doing the deadlifts, and he's like, look at me doing this deadlifts, and all his partner said was, I love those guys' bottoms, and he was like, oh.
Yeah,
and it was quite funny.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I get the most comments I get are normally on Instagram when I'm wearing my like Ronnie Coleman-esque striped ones. I love the stripy what are they called dump covers. Like they're great, but it's a bit too hot for that right now, right? It's definitely shorts weather here in the UK. It's hot. I've got a fan on me. Have you got a fan on you, or is it cool enough where you are?
No, but You
wish
I
you did.
considered it, but I've risked it and gone for it.
I'm in this light wing mesh, and underwear. That's all I'm wearing. I quite often end up just sitting here in underwear because it just is too hot. I have a fan on me as well, but
Well, to be fair, I've spent the whole day topless, so all client check-ins topless, and I just thought, well, I'll spare the listeners that, and
hey,
I'll just put on something,
you're not charging more for that, are you? Topless check-ins.
5p or something. 5p interest.
That's all you're worth, Mike. Now people are going to sign up for coaching. They're like, Mike, you have to wear a no top every check-in. I've done that a few times. I'm always like, sorry, because I like to keep it as professional as possible, and somehow topless just doesn't shout professionalism. But I'm like, well, you've seen, I've put up way worse type of thing, right? On Instagram, what have you. So and we're all bodybuilders here, so it's not such a big deal.
Exactly. So yeah. But on that note of heat, is the air conditioner back on?
Oh yeah, it was on pretty much permanently last night, and I didn't have the best sleep last night. I guess that brings on to a new topic where I know some people are very, very interested, other people are probably not. So I don't know. We'll spend as much time as what seems reasonable and allows me to continue not choking up. But yeah, Ada's not well. Obviously, last time we spoke about it, it was a case of kind of thinking it's going to be the worst and setting myself up for kind of that. And it was. She has lymphoma, so she has cancer of the blood, and is the worst type. So it's like of her stomach, gastric tract, which is just much harder to treat. And I think lymphoma in general, the survival rates are not high. Like people are like, oh, she'll recover from the chemotherapy and all of this, and she'll be fine. Whatever. Like wishing the best. I'm just the prognosis is awful. Honestly, she has months to live, basically. It could be anywhere from 2 to 4 months. That's probably the average, the mean, the median, even. Very rare cases do dogs with lymphoma live to 2 to 3 years, and that's the less severe types, of which she does not have. So yeah, that's where we were yesterday. And dude, the specialist vets is an hour away, and we had to go there twice. So it's like 4 hours out of the day immediately, and it was super hot as well. But man, I can't complain about these small there's so many little things you could complain about in terms of as an example, Ada's having chemotherapy, so her waste products are contaminated with the drugs and so on and so forth, which is harmful to humans, especially if you're immunocompromised or what have you. And so she also, I don't know if you know this, but she is a bit incontinent, so she leaks. And particularly yesterday when she was all drugged up and because she was sedated for them to be able to do things, because as you know, Mike, she is a pretty anxious dog and doesn't like people doing things, so we have to sedate her every time we go to the vets. We have to give her trazodone, is it called? We have to give her that so that they can treat her. But anyway, so she was sedated for all of this, and she came home and she couldn't walk. We had to get a taxi home actually in the end, because you couldn't walk, and she'd sit down just about and then just start leaking, as if she basically wet herself. And obviously that pee is then contaminated, so every time she lies down somewhere, you have to clean after her. And we've got loads of we just bought a load of puppy pads. You're meant to wear gloves to clean it up and dispose of it in all of this. And I'm she lies down, I call it splat, where she lies down with her legs apart and so on. She leaves a little wet patch on these carpets. I can't see where that is. So I'm just how am I meant to deal with this? And I'm my what's it called, health, I forgot what it's called, when you're really anxious about health, but anyway, I'm a bit paranoid. Yeah, I'm a bit of a health hypochondriac, and cleanliness hypochondriac. If she licks my hand, I always just want to wash my hands immediately or whatever, or if what have you. So anyway, it's kind of causing me some anxiety. But anyway, as I was talking about last night, she's she always sleeps on the bed with us, but then she's not really meant to, and she's not meant to lick you, and she's leaking. And so Charlotte was up and down all night because she was just really anxious, because Ada was just sat there zoned out on all these drugs and high. And so I just didn't sleep the best. That was my long story of saying Ada's not well, and I didn't sleep that well last night. And there's a lot of yeah, red tape, I guess, and admin that goes along with this problem that she has, along with expenses, to be honest.
Definitely, yeah.
But yeah, none of that matters apart from the fact that she's here and now and functioning. You wouldn't know anything was wrong with her right now. If you came and visited Mike, she would come jump at you at the front door and like want loads of attention and everything. Steroids go a long way. They really help.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of the news here.
It's. Are you due
It's a
to
lot.
go? Yeah. Are you due to go back to the consultant or the vets at all, or have they sort of given you, yeah, any
Yeah, we
sort of
have to go
follow-up
back
advice?
every 7 to 10 days, 4 months,
Okay.
basically. Well, for as long as she's living, basically, I think.
Right.
That's the kind of protocol with chemotherapy. There's different protocols. She outlined like 4 different protocols, and I can't remember the one that we've gone with, but it's not the most invasive because she gets really stressed going to the vet. She's not good with needles, so her quality of life would not be good if we were doing that more intensive protocol. And our veterinary nurse was just, or oncologist rather, was just like, hey, there's not a lot of evidence between these to which is superior, so which do you want to go with? And she like outlined it all. We're just like, whatever you think is best, essentially, is what we went with. So yeah, I don't know the ins and outs of what that's all going to look like, but I think it's every 7 to 10 days we have to go back to that veterinary practice in Hammersmith. That's the one we're going to, and yeah, she gets put through the chemo and all of that. The good news is chemotherapy is very different for dogs than it is for humans. So
Okay.
people might be aware, if they know anyone who's gone through such a thing. It's pretty intensive. You feel pretty rubbish. Your appetite is terrible. Your energy is terrible. But dogs, the way they try and do it with dogs is basically they wouldn't know that they're going through it. So the dog should be as unaware as possible. So her quality of life should be very good. It's just is unlikely to be very long. The destroying element of this is, one, it kind of feels like it came out of nowhere. I haven't had time to really build up to it as such. And then 2, she's not even 7 yet, Mike. She turned 7 in September. Like, I thought I'd had another 6, 7 years with her. So, yeah, it's kind of crushing from that perspective. And yeah, yesterday I flood so many tears, flood from me. You know, I'm fairly emotional and just let them go. And I have cried, I will be honest, in a few client check-ins, but those people understand because they're asking. And like a lot of people have you ever had pets, Mike?
Not on the scale of a dog. I've had like gerbils and stuff, but nothing big.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's one of those things, like I always compare it to, I didn't know what blacking out felt like until I blacked out. Like people talk about like passing out and what that feels like, but until I did it, I was like, man, that's so weird doing that. There's some things you just have to experience. For me, people tell me about having a dog and they're like unconditional love and they're man's best friend and you love them more than like people in your life. And I kind of was like, yeah, I guess. I didn't really get it though until having one. And she's just the first pet I've really ever had. Like you said, I've had like goldfish. We've had family hamsters, but I've never had, we never had a dog, and I've never owned my own dog. And I was kind of laughing to Charlotte. I was like, I spend more time with her than anyone else in my life. I've actually spent more time with her than Charlotte. And we've been together for over 10 years. But Ada spent more time with me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I can't even, it hasn't sunk in yet that I won't have her in this time next year. She won't be here. She just won't. It's awful.
I think it's hard because so many people obviously care about you. They care about Ada. They want to know, they want to help. And there's nothing I or we can do to necessarily help you. It's one of those processes which is just tough. Tough is not even the right word for it. Shit or whatever you want to say. But yeah, it's just shit, isn't it?
Yeah, it is just shit. That's the hardest part. Is just I'm completely fundamentally out of control. The only thing I can control is how do I treat Ada during this period of time, and doing that. And so when I do find myself ever getting irritated, like, oh, I have to, like, I came home from the gym today and she'd peed like in the house. She doesn't really do that, but the steroids, they lead her drinking more, so she has to pee more frequently, and she just peed in the kitchen. It's like, I wasn't irritated at all. I was like actually really kind of upset that happened. But if I ever find myself being like, oh, that's annoying, or like whatever, like today she went out, I took her out in the morning, and she went for a wee, and because she wees more now, she's ending up peeing and there's a puddle and she's like stood in it. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have to clean her in the bath when I get home. It's just like extra time, hassle, like you find your routine and you're trying to be efficient. And if I ever find myself being like annoyed, I just have to slap myself in the face and be like, hey, dude, like literally, like she has a very short period of time. The thing that sucks at the moment, Mike, is it's super hot, as we mentioned, and dogs do not do well in the heat. So I can't take her out for any walks past the morning. And so if she's not up for a walk in the morning, but she feels more up for it later in the day, I can't take her out in this heat because it's like deadly to dogs. They can do themselves some real damage, and they can actually die from being overheated. So any temperatures much above like 20 degrees, they just, especially some big dogs with smaller noses, I believe, do worse. So she does a bit better because she's smaller and has a good snout on her, but still we can't kind of take her out. So, and then it's just scary, like, is there going to be repercussions from the chemotherapy treatment she's on? Like there are side effects that she could experience. And yeah, it's scary, it's upsetting, but it's life, and I keep saying cancer doesn't discriminate. And after last year, which was, as you know, Mike, really tough year, the listeners know it was a tough year. Yeah, when I first heard that it could be cancer and this is the route it was going, I just immediately like flood with tears, and it brought back a ton of like heartache. So anyway, if we talk about it too much more, I'm going to start crying, and I said I didn't want to do that.
No, I think if I can just, because it got me thinking a lot yesterday as well, just thinking about just death, but not in like the morbid way, but more in the sense of, again, like death isn't discriminatory, but it's the ultimate perspective giver in the sense that nothing lasts forever, and it really makes you appreciate what you've got now. Again, like as like the human condition is, we get used to things and we think, oh, this is going to be here forever, and then and then inevitably we get reminded of that. But it just, again, it's a reminder to really appreciate everything and what we've got right now. Because I was even thinking of it in the context of like, hair. We are, we're going to go grey. We're not going to look like this forever. Our bodies are going to, shrivel up and whatnot.
You've seen Brad Pitt lately, Mike? He looks pretty fucking good.
Well, no, I haven't. You know me. I'm not up to date with that.
Check out David Beckham. Like, he does not look his age.
True. Yeah.
We're all going to live forever soon, Mike. You don't discount AI. I think Dr. Mike's all about that, right? He thinks we're going to live forever. They're going to find some miracle solution. I don't know if that's a miracle, right? Living forever, though.
But then now we're getting into moral questions of, would living forever make us happier, and all of that sort of jazz.
Yeah. A deadline isn't a bad thing, I think. I think sometimes it's a good thing. I even noticed that with Ada, for example, when we knew she wasn't well, I was already treating her better. Not that I was treating her poorly before, like you've seen me with Ada. Like, I don't treat her poorly by any means, by any stretch of the imagination, but I was just giving her extra attention, extra hugs, extra love. And yeah, sometimes you don't appreciate it until too late. And yeah, I had a few upsetting messages. People reach out to me being like, hey, I really regretted X, Y, and Z related to my dog. Like, so they're just trying to give me some perspective and to try and make the most from her. And even it's hard when she'll lie behind me whilst I'm working, as you'll know, very often. And I just find myself like, why am I working? Why am I just like obsessing about Ada? But I'm like, there's only so much obsession and love and hugs and everything I can give her. So we might try and do a trip away or something if she's well enough to be able to do that. Just like a dog friendly weekend away, that sort of thing. So actually we were considering, someone messaged me about this, doing a photo shoot with her. So if she's well enough to be able to do that, that would be quite nice to just, like, I know it's super cringe doing a photo shoot, like, see
not at all
people do that, but I think that might be quite lovely.
I think it's again savoring, cherishing the memories. Like, you'll always be able to look back on that and it will immediately bring back love. So it's like, yeah, I think that's great. And again, it's like what we're talking about with your clothes. It's like, who cares?
Yeah, exactly. What's that book? The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Like, it's just such a good perspective to have on life. And yes, moments like this just remind you of that. But let's. I don't think we need to talk about it anymore, and I don't particularly want to. So I just want to say finally, anyone who reached out to me on Instagram, I believe I got back to everyone. But if I ever missed anyone, or if people are like, oh, you must be getting inundated with messages, like they don't want to irritate me or something. None of it's irritating. I really appreciate all the love and support. If anything, I just feel guilty for receiving it because I feel like Ada should receive that. But if anything, if it makes me feel any sort of bit better, I will apply that to Ada. So no, it's not irritating. It all comes welcomed, and yeah, I really appreciate everyone, and I appreciate you, Mike. You sent that lovely card, and that was very much appreciated. So yeah, yeah, Ada, thanks everyone too. I would have her on my lap, but she might leak on me, and then I'll get all worried that I'm like causing myself problems.
You have to spray yourself with anti-radiation therapy.
Yeah, don't even want to. Yeah, it's like what's it called? The plastics. You know, like plastics are everywhere.
Yeah,
it's almost like you can only do so much. I think that's kind of the attitude I'm having here. Where I'm like, I'll do my absolute best not to get her fluids on me. Oh my god, if you could see her face right now. She looks so cute. She's like looking up at me with her mouth open like because she's hot and panting.
One thing that I was interested in, because we had a tiny bit of back and forth at the beginning of the week regarding your knee. I was just wondering how your knee's been getting on this week as well.
Yeah, so this is, I guess I'll start from the start. So my knees have always been traditionally pretty fine. I think maybe I've once before flagged to you, Mike, that I had like a little bit of a knee issue, and I can't even remember what it was, and it cleared really quickly. So I'm a pretty resilient individual, and I think like we program smart, so it's not like I don't often get injuries. And so, yeah, the issue that I'm dealing with, I believe, is like a patella tendonitis. So it's like above the knee, especially when I get into deep knee flexion, I get quite a like sharp pain, and when I go into my concentric, particularly, that's when it's really painful. And so knee flexion, basically. And it started happening. Actually, I think I started exhibiting it when I tried the sissy squat hacks, which we talked about last week. And I'd forgotten that it did this. But one of the reasons I wasn't hugely fond of them the first time was because it did irritate my knees. It puts a lot of sheer stress. The sissy squats just do, right? But particularly heavy sissy squats, which like I said, I could only get 8 reps on a hack. I think that might have just been too much loading too soon for them. And so I was kind of stubborn. It wasn't that bad, and I kind of did it. But I think it was a combination of factors. So that already irritated it. And then I got my tattoo, and I had to modify how I was performing the leg press. And just that modification, it was putting, again, forces through my knees differently. And in fact, when I did the modification, I don't know, I didn't change my rep range as such, but I loaded the leg press quite heavy, thinking I'll be stronger in this position because my feet were higher. I was getting less range of motion, less knee flexion. So I wanted to just see, hey, let's try 250 kilos here. And so I did that, and I got like 12 reps. So typically I'd get 15 reps for my first set. So I loaded it heavier in a different position, and there it started to get a bit irritated, and I got quite a lot of soreness through my quads, and driven through primarily novelty, of course. And what I had thought was just soreness was also the knee kicking up a fuss. And so there's somewhat, now I think back to it, it was very obvious that that was what it was, but I thought it was just like lots of soreness, and that's what I was exhibiting. And so then I pushed through a leg training day with it being uncomfortable, and even actually pushed through a leg press session back to my previous style of leg press, and pushed through, I think I actually said it last time, like I pushed through maybe something I shouldn't have, just thinking, hey, I'll get away with it. Like I think probably the listeners know, like sometimes you feel those things during lifts where you're like, oh, it's not bad enough, I'll get away with it. And I think I just didn't, basically. And so I messaged you being like, hey, it's quite painful. What should we do about it? My muscles are recovered, but the tendons aren't. And so we kind of discussed some modifications. So doing some warming up with some isometrics. So I'd been doing like just random wall sits here and there for like 45 seconds. And then also I started the session warming up the knees. So I did some walking, and I did some isometrics on the leg extension. And I started my session with leg extensions to just pre-fatigue the quads, just so that I could use less loads, and then they'd be more so the limiting factor. and I still leg pressed, but I didn't do the deepest range of motion. I did kind of like a just traditional leg press stance that worked pretty well, and it felt pretty good. I just had to be extra careful to control the deeper ranges of motion and just have a bit more of a controlled tempo versus more of a ballistic tempo, which I've been more so towards. And I reduced the loads heavily and did very continuous reps, so not allowing breathers or anything like that. And yeah, did it like that. And then the hack squats actually felt a little worse than the leg press for some reason, and I had to really slow down the deep eccentric portion for it to be manageable. Something we discussed, Mike, was not letting it get out of like 3 to 5 out of 10. And I think if I'd approached the set as if it was my normal hack squats, I definitely would have been above that. But reducing the load and really slowing, particularly that deep knee flexion position, allowed me to perform it with like about a 3 out of 10 pain. And that was it, basically. And after I told you, I got a bit of like lateral to the bottom knee pain, but I was like, I said this to you, I was like, I think it's just a bit of a oddity. I don't think it's actually anything to be worried about. And the next day it was pretty much gone. And today my knees actually feel great today. So this is 2 days post. I haven't got into much deep knee flexion positions today. When I bring my like legs underneath me here, I don't really notice anything too much in my knees. I will say my quads are still sore from, again, the novelty, because it was a change. So I think I've got legs tomorrow. I think I'll probably, I would be tempted to revert straight back to previous programming, but I don't think that's wise. I think I want to do another session similar to this last one, where again, I kind of do a pre-fatigue, extra warm-up, slower tempos, maybe modify the range of motion a little bit, and higher reps. And I think after another week of that, it'll probably be in a position where I can almost get back to previous programming, which will be cool. So yeah, that was the experience, Mike. I'm sure you have lots of thoughts.
Yeah, lots. But it is really interesting, I guess. Yeah, it's fascinating. But again, no one is immune to niggles. As smart as you can be, injuries are multifactorial, and there were those key events that happened along the journey of this knee pain coming on, but there was also context specific stuff within your life that were probably contributing as well. And I think those things are always playing a role, even if it's underneath the hood as such.
Yeah.
I was going to say one thing that is really useful is, particularly if it is a tendon related problem, that 24 to 48 hour response is a good indicator for, how it's responded. So if you're feeling fine, if not maybe slightly better, that is a really, really good sign.
It's definitely better today than it was 2 days ago.
So that's a great sign. And I would say, like, don't be in a rush. Let's not be in a rush. Let's just let this thing resolve itself, because I think sometimes, from what I observe in the clinic, is sometimes people just, they see improvement and they just get a bit too hasty, and they kind of, it might be a situation where like, the pain was better, so I stopped doing all of the exercises or whatever. And I'm like, if you'd have just waited and kept going, it might have been, but, so yeah, I think, give yourself time, keep being patient, and yeah, I think we've done things well here.
Something I think worth mentioning, Mike, is, and some people who watch my training videos might question this, is obviously I was doing a lot of, I think this probably contributed, but I don't think it was the cause, at least in my perspective, but I'd love to hear yours. I was doing a lot of movements that were very quad biased, so I was having a focus on knee flexion, less hip flexion, less glutes, and driving my knees forward and putting a lot of tension and potentially shearing force through the tendon there. And some people would be like, oh, duh, you were doing like heavy sissy squats, and you were doing like your Smith squats with feet forward, and you were just like limiting your range of motion to put all the tension through the quads, and you're doing like your deep leg press and so on and so forth. Do you think that led to it? Or yeah, obviously I already discussed what I think led to it and what we think led to it, but do you have any thoughts on that? Because some people have been like, oh, duh, like, look at what you were doing and what you've experienced.
No, not necessarily, because so you were coping. I think the other context, the other sort of factors that could have played a role is, one, you're further along in your mesocycle. So there's there's an accumulation of, potential underlying fatigue there. Your body could have been very happy coping with that, but then there were probably like two or three variables that changed, and they might have been a significant change, and maybe that might just have been enough to just get your body out of sync a little bit and lead to the sensitization. And I think that's what I was alluding to with regards to that. So there's always multiple factors involved. So I don't think it was one thing in isolation. I think there was a couple of things just sent the body out, out a little bit, and that might have led to it.
Yeah, my thoughts are, when you train progressively into a movement, you actually build resilience. So
Yes.
it's almost like it's protective against such things. And I completely agree with you that there was a bunch of different things that happened, like even the stress of the tattoo and what that brought, and the lifestyle adjustments, like that's fairly significant, these sort of things. And I had to change my split around a little bit. So yeah, I'm glad you're on the same page with me there, because yeah, I see that sort of thing, and I'm like, I understand where they're going from, because it's very like, oh, correlation, causation, like it's very like, oh, you're doing X, it led to Y, like clearly that was the problem. It's like, oh, not always. I think context is key, as they say, right?
Definitely.
Mike, anything going on your end worth chatting about?
No, I am further along on Hunter x Hunter, very much getting into that.
Leorio.
Yes,
I remembered the
name. Yeah. And okay, now that I know, I've got the name in my head, but I can't pronounce it very well.
Killua.
Utica?
No, not Killua. Sorry.
No, not Killua. Leorio is like little Kurapika. That's it. Yeah, Kurapika.
The character that looks female.
What, with the blonde cropped hair?
Yes.
Yeah. That's it.
Kurapika.
Kurapika. Yeah. So, but I can definitely appreciate the relationship between Gon and Killua now, with what you said last time. I'm like, I see this now.
Yeah, it gets better. It just keeps getting better through the whole show. The relationship, you're just like, oh. It just brings so much joy to you, and it's very mature actually. Good. So yeah, you'll enjoy it. What was the last thing you just saw?
So the initial exams have finished, and Killua has gone back to his assassin family house, and Gon has gone to find him to say, "I'm your friend, come back."
Wow, you're actually pretty deep then, I feel like. So yeah, that's cool.
Episode 23?
Nice. Yeah, nice. Yeah, it's only, it's not like a Naruto level of episodes. I can't remember how many, but there's only like, I don't know if there's even 100. So yeah, it's not a super long one. Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, there's plenty to dive into, and it's good because it's easier to rewatch, whereas Naruto's a lot to rewatch, which I haven't attempted yet. But I digress. We should probably get some Q&A then, because otherwise we won't get to too many. I will ask you the first question here, Mike, from Nick G _ STL.
Awesome.
Approach training smaller muscle groups, arms or delts, differently than larger ones, chest/back, weight, rep, set progressions, etc. So do you approach programming training for smaller muscle groups differently to larger ones?
Not necessarily. For the goal of
hypertrophy, sorry.
I would say the only slight difference would be I probably start a little bit closer to failure with the smaller body parts. So typically so things like maybe biceps, triceps, side delts, calves, classically they can they can recover quicker. So I would tend to start more like 1 to 2 RAR, whereas a larger muscle group will be maybe 2 to 3 RAR. I would say that's the biggest difference. Typically as well, for me at least, the volumes tend to be a little bit more, again, because they can recover quite well, they can take quite a lot. But apart from that, there isn't a massive difference, I would say.
I probably have some additional ones where you'll be like, oh yeah, that too. So rep ranges. I think that's probably one where you'd be like, oh yes. Typically slightly higher in rep ranges versus your big compound lifts. This tend to do better with it. I don't know if anyone's tried doing, at least for your first set, for any of those smaller muscle groups, doing less than 10 reps. So picking a load that for your first set gets you less than 10 reps tends to just feel a lot in the joint, connective tissue. it's hard to actually make sure that the muscle's doing the work over something else kind of breaking down.
Mm.
Whereas I think reps below 10 can work. I just don't think for your first set it wants to be that way. So
Yeah.
that's one additional one. Outside of that, so like set progressions, auto-regulated, as you
Hmm.
mentioned. I think one of the reasons as well, starting closer to failure for them is because they have such a high volume tolerance a lot of the time. By being closer to failure, you can pull more on that intensity lever versus that volume lever. So it's just a bit more efficient use of your time in that sense. Anything else in terms of inherent programming differences? Um, no, apart from that, nothing immediately comes to mind. So I think we can probably
Mm.
leave that question there.
Awesome. So the next question by Jim Sam Davis is, what type of progression do you both enjoy? Double, dynamic double, wave loading, beat the logbook, etc. Has it changed over the years? Jim.
So I think some people think there's something special to progression methods, and there isn't. Or what we know for hypertrophy is to grow muscle, we need to meet a relative intensity threshold. So we need to be training close enough to failure. Practically 3 RAR or less, I think, is a great place to be. We need to meet a absolute loading threshold, so we don't want to be doing reps more than 30 generally. It's just inefficient use of time. I would even argue going much above 20, 25. Probably don't want to be pushing that regularly, at least. Probably not the best sense. So intensity needs to be met, relative and absolute, and then you need to do enough volume of work, essentially. And so that's number of hard sets, so number of these sets. And so long as you meet those thresholds, you are growing muscle. You don't want to fall out of those thresholds, so inevitably you have to progress things, because as your body adapts, what was once a 3 RR will become a 4, a 5, and suddenly you're not growing any muscle tissue. So long as you stay within that threshold, you're growing muscle. And I don't love people to think about RAR more than they need to. So I don't love thinking about programming an RAR every week. I like, yeah, you might have an RAR in mind, like, hey, I don't want to be above a 3, but I prefer to kind of set a baseline in week 1 of we meet these thresholds convincingly, and then we just look to match or beat performance, because we can't expect to beat performance every week on every set for everything. But we at least want to match it, because if we don't match it, yeah, there could be some things that are off, that are just acute for that one given session. But if we're not matching performance, it's a sign of under recovery. And then it's a case of, do we need to pull back? Do we need to deload? Do we need some light sessions, especially if there's several drops in performance? So I really just come back to this progression model of match or beat. And I like micro loading. So as little a load increase as possible, really. Anything more than 3%, you'd expect reps to drop off quite a bit. And then, so that works really well for compound lifts. And then for isolation lifts, higher rep lifts, generally where you're using lower loads, and the next load increase is like a 10% increase and sometimes more. And that would just mess up your progression scheme a little bit, because your reps would have to drop off by so much, and it becomes a little bit harder to track progress. In those circumstances, I'm also just look to add repetitions. And then within that, auto-regulating volume. So trying to get you to a point where we start like convincingly meeting thresholds for growth, and then we take someone to the point where it's a level of volume they're recovering from, they can adhere to, and they're progressing on, and kind of essentially sustain that for as long as possible. And that's kind of the model that I've been using for the last, I don't know how many years it's been now, Mike, but we've been using that model for a long, long time. And it's been that model has been the hallmark of our programming for a long time, but there's been like iterations of it, and I think we've got to understand it better. So yeah, I remember looking back in like old textbooks, they'd have double, triple progression, and there's other also names for these sort of things. I've actually done blogs on these as well, but fundamentally they all come back to that fundamental principle that I said of like, you got to progress at some point and meet these thresholds over time.
Yeah,
Big
I
ramble.
completely. No, I think it was really well explained. And I like the idea of not thinking about it more than you need to, because I think, particularly for some people, including myself, you can get very caught up in paralysis by analysis. And I think it's better just to make sure that you start at an appropriate level, and then just, yeah, small progression each week. Just think about, right, don't overthink it, just small progression each week. put in that effort and then go from there. And something which I've actually recently been telling myself in my head when I go into the gym is just be content with the smallest amount of progression possible. And it's just helping me not make bigger jumps than I need to. Because I think sometimes, like, I don't know about you, Steve, but you think, oh, you get sort of attracted to this, you round up the number, like you might go from like 157.5. No, I'm just going to go straight to 160 or straight to 170. And it just leads to jumps which are, you know, that you shouldn't or don't need to be making. And I think just I just tell myself, be content with the tiniest progression possible. And it just helps keep my ego in check.
Sometimes, I totally agree with you, those like micro loading and just an extra rep here or there, even like an extra rep on like multiple sets is progression. Even arguably being able to repeat performance week on week is a progression, because you're under, and this is a bit theoretical, I guess, more accumulative fatigue. That fitness fatigue model, I think, is, people take it as fact, but I think it is still under question a little bit. I actually want to do a podcast on that with Samuel Buckner, because he's done some interesting work on that, but I digress. I will say that, yes, generally, absolutely what you mentioned there, Mike, and someone actually said this to me when I went to, I don't know, I was doing RDLs and I was doing like 195 and I went to 197.5. And someone was like, oh, that probably took a lot of like, you had to like hold your ego back not to just jump straight to 200. I was like, I didn't. Like it didn't take anything there. However, what I will say sometimes is, for example, I was doing cable rows, and on the machine I use, you can like add plates to it to like micro load it, but it's a bit awkward. It's a bit like a bit of a faff, put it that way. I was just like, I'm just going to go up in like quite a significant amount of load, put it in the next, and then it's almost somehow it was almost relieving that I was like, it takes me away from that pressure of having to beat performance that I sometimes get stuck into. I want to beat performance. I'm just like, hey, I'm using a heavier load. I know the reps are going to be quite far from where I was, and I'm just going to take the set to a quality 0 RER, and then I'm going to look to keep this load now and progress this up in reps over the weeks. Sometimes I like doing that, but that's like a nuanced chat that you have with clients and they understand. But anyway, I don't think we'll probably need to dive into this question anymore.
Yeah, but no,
Shall I ask
good
you the
stuff.
next one?
Yeah, let's go.
So, Martin... Oh, you've already read it. Martin,
No, well,
yeah. Oh, is it for me?
It's for you.
Well, Martin has asked, Steve, about your cutting guide, do you plan on including the use of refeeds, talk about losing strength on a cut and prep? Cutting guide. So is this me? I think maybe he's referring to the fact that I said I need to do a solo podcast on dieting. And so he's asked, will I use a talk about refeeds? Yes, I'll definitely talk about refeeds. I might have to do a separate solo podcast talking specifically about prep, because I think I'll talk generally about dieting and cutting and general fat loss phases, and then I'll do a separate podcast talking about some of the deeper aspects of prep. Yeah. So I'll ask you the next one, Mike. The _anonymous has asked, I know you've taken ashwagandha periodically. What do you think of Rhodiola rosea? Love the podcast. Thank you, Anonymous.
Thank you, Anonymous. Do you know what? For me personally, I don't have a lot of experience with Rhodiola rosea. I feel that it's a similar it's in that similar bracket to ashwagandha, but I couldn't probably give any detailed response on this, to be honest with you. I don't know about you, Steve.
Yeah, so ashwagandha I've actually only just started taking ashwagandha again. I took just over a week off it. And interesting enough, I don't know if it's just placebo, but I think it's been helping my sleep. I think it has been. And I mean, obviously there's research suggesting that. I think it's making me dream more as well, which I don't think is a bad thing. So quite cool. But yeah, so for the listeners, every 12 weeks or so, I take a week off or so, basically. Another approach is take it 5 days a week and take the weekend off. Something like that would also be a potential way of taking it, just because we don't have data of taking it longer than 12 weeks and it being safe. So yeah. Funny enough, Mike, some people find they get like a withdrawal symptoms from stopping ashwagandha. I don't know if you've ever felt any of that. I've never noticed anything.
No, I haven't. I was thinking though, a lot of the supplements now, they're pairing ashwagandha with like L-theanine and some other related things. So again, that kind of makes sense, I guess. But yeah, no, I didn't know some people get withdrawals.
Yeah. There's like whole Reddit threads on this. I haven't looked at it, deep
Huh,
dived into it, but I have seen people talking about it. So there's definitely
crazy.
something there for some people. Yeah, I've not really experienced it with clients though. Funny you mentioned L-theanine. That's also one I take pre-bed. That's not something I cycle. I just take it as a consistent. But Rhodiola rosea. So yes, I actually have some. Um, but it's not something I consistently use. I basically use it almost as a pre-workout. So it has a slight stimulatory effect. And so it can kind of replace caffeine in that way. So if I'm ever feeling a bit beat up, I tend to just take it as like a pre-workout, essentially. Just take a tablet, and that's the way I go. Particularly in times of high fatigue, so it can just help buffer fatigue. Basically, that's what Rhodiola rosea does, and it has some decent evidence, I would say. So if people are, that's one that I would suggest is like a good comp prep tool more than anything, just because that's when you're under most levels of fatigue, and supplements are expensive, right? And they don't do a ton, so like to consistently take that in your off season might be a bit unwarranted. So I actually ended up buying it from I forget the company, but it was when I won my pro card in the Netherlands. I got a supplement voucher, and I bought supplements, and part of that they had Rhodiola rosea, and I was like, oh, I'll buy some Rhodiola rosea. Otherwise, I've never actually bought it out of my own pocket.
Nice. I was gonna say one thing that I sometimes use is taurine. I don't know if you could liken Rhodiola rosea a little bit to taurine, or is it slightly different again?
I think taurine is a little different. That's one I've actually bought taurine and I have it, but it is a stress reliever. Um, but also it's in pre-workout products. So
Mm,
yeah, taurine's an interesting one because it was also in the mass research review they talked about taurine, and like there was some sense of being like, do you want to take that pre-workout? Because I think it can maybe negate some of the benefits of some of the stimulants. I'm not sure. I don't want it. People
mm,
like I don't know it offhand. Supplements are really hard because there's so many and there's so much to know. So like I keep up to date with like creatine. I kind of know it fairly well. But like when you start talking about all these slightly fringe ones, I'm like, oh, I have to like go to my notes or examine or the mass research review.
mm.
So yeah, how do you take taurine? Sorry, Mike.
I do take it as a pre-workout, so I have it. I put because I have caffeine powder at home. I'll have caffeine powder, taurine, and I'll have it with a little bit of juice, and that's it. And I have, again, anecdotally, I find I don't the caffeine. It feels a bit more steady. I feel a bit more steady with kind of how the caffeine affects me, rather than when I don't have it. I feel that sometimes I get more of a whoosh from the caffeine, and then go from there.
Yeah, that's normally L-theanine's often coupled with caffeine for that reason to like take off that the jitters it's called. It like smooths out.
Mm,
So it's interesting. I guess as taurine is a stress reliever, I can see why it does that. And then yeah, like I said, taurine's in loads of like Red Bull and things like this. And actually, Greg Potter talked about it as like having some longevity benefits too, which is why I bought some. But I still
mm.
haven't I haven't taken the time to be like, when should I take this? Because I'm like, I don't want to take it pre-bed because it's like it's a relaxant, right? Or part of the
Mm.
effects are that way. So like, yeah, pre-bed. But then it's like, why is it in pre-workout? So I was just like, I need to take some time to research it a little bit to know when's best to take it. Anyway, I'm rambling. Shall I ask you the next
No,
question, Mike? Because you didn't
yeah,
get to say much on that one.
go
Uh,
for it.
Barnaby Stanton asks, I've taken a break from weights for a couple of years to focus on marathon running. How long to see my gains come back, muscle memory, etc.?
Oh, good question. Um, hmm. Well, I think if it's hard to put, for me personally, I would find it hard to give like a hard line, like a hard number to say like, oh, in X amount of months you're guaranteed to have all your muscle mass come back. It also depends on like where was your starting point, and where are you now, how much muscle mass did you lose during your during your marathon training. Is your approach going to be better or worse in terms of lifestyle management? Will you have all of your ducks in a row for that muscle growth, for your gains coming back, essentially? Because you definitely want to make sure, if you want that recomp or those gains to come back as fast as possible, you definitely want to make sure you've got all of your muscle growth ducks as such in a row. Because if you're still going to be doing some kind of running training, there might be, is that going to conflict with your hypertrophy training? There's lots of factors to take into consideration. If you solely kind of like dedicated yourself to hypertrophy training, had all your ducks in a row, again, it will probably come back fastest. Again, I'm probably not going to give you a hard, X amount of months or whatever, but yeah, I think a lot of factors consider. That was a very waffly answer, but I hope it made sense.
Yeah, it's totally reasonable to have a waffly answer because there is no there are rules of thumb, but there's no guarantee by any means because, like you said, there's so many life contextual variables to consider there. I just searched through some of my notes and I had obviously muscle memory is a real thing, so you have that myonuclear domain remains, and they had one study where they had people train and then detrain and retrain men for 7 weeks. So I just have the notes here saying back to baseline after detrain, but after 7 weeks. So they trained for 7 weeks, then they were off for 7 weeks. So they lost everything they gained in those 7 weeks after 7 weeks. But after 7 more weeks, they were back above their initial 7 weeks. So they were like up here 7 weeks, then they were back to baseline 7 weeks. And then after another 7 weeks, they were back above where they were. So clearly there is this was just an example of showing that there's muscle memory. And I believe I've heard the rule of thumb of it taking about 1/3 of the time just in general. So like if you were detrained for 12 months, then you could look to regain that within 4 months. So it does come back pretty swiftly, but I wouldn't assume anything. And it comes back to all of these assumed things. It's like genetics. How much muscle can I gain in my first year of lifting? It's like, man, there's too many variables to consider. And also, who cares? Just do your best job and get the best results you possibly can. That's kind of where I come back to it, right? So, yeah, I think your waffly answer made sense, but hopefully just some rules of thumb and that study is of interest.
Definitely. And I think just to emphasize that point, that's exactly what I was thinking of. Rather than focusing on, will it be 7 weeks? Will it be 6 months? It's like, just like you said, focus on just doing your best and it will come back when it comes back.
Do you want to ask me the next question?
I will ask you the next question. I'm just getting up. My phone's just tapped out and it's not tapping back in.
Oh, I can go.
Right.
I have the next one here if you want me to go. Okay.
So, Ben.Calman, he asks, we have seen many of the OG natural pros doing intuitive eating, quote unquote, during preps recently. Thoughts on less strictly tracked prep training?
So, that confused me at the end there. Thoughts on less strictly tracked prep training? Training, or are we talking about diet? We're talking about diet, right? Not training.
Yeah. So
I don't know. Actually, maybe he is talking about training.
Maybe take it as yeah. Maybe take it as dieting during prep.
I'll cover both because I think he actually is asking about thoughts on less strictly tracked prep training. I think he would know if he's written training or nutrition. So anyway, in terms of intuitive eating, so first of all, recognize they're not doing intuitive eating. Intuitive eating, I think, the strict definition of that is that it isn't done for the role of body composition change. So what they're doing is mindfully eating. So Alberto Nunez might not track his food, but he's very aware by looking at his plates, by looking at the meal frequency, how much protein he's roughly had by the end of the day. He'll be able to use his hunger cues and also just knowledge of total calories that his meals are looking like and habits and things like this, that he's in a calorie deficit. And so it has some downsides in terms of not having as much precision, but maybe the upsides for some individuals who have driven that road so many times that they know it very well, the stress of not having to track things so closely could be worth it to them, and they actually get more pros versus cons. I think it is going to be individual to individual, and you might find some people can navigate the initial starts of prep, the road they've journeyed many a time, and it's quite an easy journey, and they can do that mindfully. But then when it comes to the sticky end, the pointy end of prep, that's a bit more challenging to navigate, and there's more roadblocks and hurdles. They need to be a bit more precise with their tracking, and they might come back to tracking at that point. And then do you want to cover any thoughts on intuitive eating, Mike, during prep, or mindful eating, as I've
I,
tried
well,
to change it to?
one thing that I just wanted to emphasize was tracking isn't something which you're in the camp of tracking and you're out of the camp of tracking. It's something that maybe, hey, you use, and maybe sometimes you don't track for a little while, but it's something you always come back to every now and again during certain points with what you said. Maybe you just want a bit of a reset. Maybe, you need a bit more precision because certain things have changed, etc. But yeah, it's something which doesn't have to be, it's not a do or you don't. It's just something that you come back to help just realign with where you think you need to be.
Cool. And then in terms of less strictly tracked prep training, when I think about this, I go to like a first principle standpoint of what do we need to achieve with our training during a contest prep? And that is, we need to provide a stimulus for muscle retention. And therefore it comes back to all the things I mentioned answering the previous question of, we need to meet relative absolute intensity thresholds. We need to meet a volume threshold. And so long as we're doing that, we can be pretty sure that we could be growing muscle, but less sure when we're in a calorie deficit because muscle protein breakdown is higher, our ability to perform is lower. And if you aren't logbooking, you can't catch some of those things happening when they are happening, and you could be ignorant to that drop. So it comes back to similar, like with mindful eating, you might get to a point during a prep where you're so hungry and your body is so fighting you that you're unable to mindfully go about that process because you need to be more strict. And similar within a training period, you come to a point where you might need the logbook to give you that data to help assess, am I holding performance or am I dropping it? Do I need to increase volume, decrease volume? Do I need to deload? What have you? I think it just starts to become a bit tricky. And what I will say is, for me at least, so I don't know how you feel about this, Mike, but I do think being a little stubborn with keeping exercises in during prep is a good move until it isn't. So for example, one of the surest ways that we can know we're growing muscle as a natural is that we're seeing performance go up. So one of the surest ways that we can know we're maintaining muscle as a natural is that our performance is holding at least. I know there's some people that like to argue if you're not building performance, then you're like potentially losing muscle, men are Henselmans. But I think given certain contexts, that's not the case. And so I really like people to like logbook and because quite often the mind gives up before the body. Whereas if you have numbers in the logbook, you keep quality at the forefront and you fight for those. I think that's a really good situation. Whereas when you don't have that, it's so easy to pussyfoot around and think you're getting a pump and you're getting stimulus and oh yeah, it's all good. And it's similar to chasing novelty and being oh yeah, I change my program every week and I'm always sore, I'm always pumped. And it's yeah, but you're actually overloading anything. So I think there's just quite a lot of risks with that approach. I think definitely some people can probably do it. There's probably people listening that don't logbook and just kind of go intuitively within their training. But for us average Joes, I think we need that data to help us navigate and properly train during a contest prep. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, it's just about hedging your bets because, like you said, sure, you might be able to intuitively train, but can you be certain? If you've got that objective data in your logbook and you can see that your performance is at the very least holding, then that can give you more confidence to know that, right, I am providing a stimulus that is going to maintain muscle mass. Whereas you haven't got that and you potentially are at the risk of, self-deception, how do you know? And then that's when you get in the point where oh shit, for some reason you're looking worse, or maybe you end up losing a little bit of muscle and you're how did this happen? And you're well, so I think, I think that's kind of an important point.
Just one additional point to that. And again, I really liked your points there. It makes me also think sometimes with the logbook is objective. It gives you feedback to what you're doing outside of the gym and whether or not that's helping the gym. So it's little things you could have a poor night's sleep and your performance could be down, and you see that and you're damn, I need to get on top of my sleep. Whereas if you don't log it and you're just yeah, I went to the gym and I trained to failure and I did hack squats and it was all fine and dandy. It's yeah, but that's not give you the feedback maybe you needed, it kicks you up the butt being like, no, you're 10% down on performance and you need to get that sleep in check. So I think there's just like checks and balances that also the logbook can play a role with, that's just fundamentally so important when you are traveling such a challenging time, such as a contest prep. So yeah, I think, Mike, that might be the last question I can get to this
Cool.
evening, and we can
No
save,
problem.
there's quite a lot still for next time. So I just want to say thank you so much to everyone for their questions, as always. Again, thank you for all the kind words surrounding Ada. Don't worry, we won't talk about it heavily as this every single week. I know some people are probably fed up about it, so I'm not going to apologize actually about that.
No.
But yeah, thank you, Mike, for your time. And anything else you want to leave the listeners with, Mike, apart from your lovely singing at the start?
I do just want to say a massive thank you to everyone who left happy birthday messages last week. I really appreciate everyone saying happy birthday in the comments. Highly appreciate it. And you haven't given your normal message about the Hypertrophic Time Chamber. We're an online coaching company. Both you and me are online coaches. You're the OG, of course. And so if you want to sign up for coaching, guys, head to the website, send us an email, sign up an application form, jump on a coaching consultation with us, and we'll go from there. And if you want to join the Hypertrophic Time Chamber, you can ask questions for us there, and we will give you our thoughts and get back to you.
Awesome. Yes, well remembered. I'll have that linked in the description, the Hypertrophic Time Chamber. You can join directly. Like I said, always say, if you have questions outside of that, you're not on Instagram or whatever, comment on YouTube, email us, whatever it is, you'll get in touch. I think I've done that before, the whole spiel. And yes, our coaching is linked in the description too. You can check it out and you can book a consult, have a chat, and we can go from there. Otherwise, guys, thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you in the next one.
See you later.